Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today I want to talk about how these 1000 plus energy shields are being created in 3.21 Crucible League. Now this is something that most of the process is actually fairly accessible, but it's the final step that's miserable. The thing is that this is one of those final steps where you're not facing ruin, you're not going back to the start every time you fail it, but you will need to literally do it thousands of times. We'll get to that one in a sec. But firstly, let's talk about what it is that makes these shields so effective. There's four pieces that come together here. Firstly, it is the Emperor's Vigilance item itself. Has 1000% increased armor and energy shield on a base that doesn't have all that much armor and energy shield normally. Now this scales in extraordinarily strong ways with Crucible mods that provide flat energy shield. So if you can get 40 flat energy shield on the item, then instead of getting just 40 energy shield, you'll end up getting 440 from that. And then there's going to be further steps that will add even more to that. Now there is another Crucible mod, 15% increased magnitude of defense modifiers. This will raise the 1000% increased armor and energy shield to 1150% increased armor and energy shield. This stacks additively with quality on the item, so you'll end up, if you've got 30 quality, with 1180% increase. And finally, there is a very strong offensive mod as well that is available in the Crucible system for exactly this shield. And that is Shield Crush and Spectral Shield Throw gain 30 to 50 added lightning damage per 15 energy shield on shield, instead of gaining the physical damage based on armor and evasion that they would normally get. And all physical damage of the skill is converted to lightning. This is incredibly strong as well, and it makes these shields into well-rounded offensive and defensive powerhouses at the same time. So, how rare is each part of the puzzle? Firstly, you're going to need the 40 energy shield mod. This one's uncommon, and it's always in column 1 on the Crucible tree. Secondly, you're going to need the mod that grants 15% increase to the magnitude of defensive modifiers. This one's quite rare, but it's not staggeringly rare, and it will be in column 3 or in column 4. Finally, you have the Spectral Shield Throw and Shield Crush mod. This is common, and it will always be in column 5 on your Crucible tree. The rarest part of this puzzle is going to be Scour chancing the Vigilance unique at the end, because you're going to start crafting this on a rare item so that at one step along the way you can use Crychic Chimerals, i.e. Imprint Base. So, the parts that you need to do before you Scour chance it, you're going to want to create a Steel Kite shield similar to the one that you see on the right hand side of the screen. Now this one here was available for 14 Divines last night on trade, and I think that there's a pretty substantial margin that the person generating these to sell has been making, so unfortunately I'm going to rain on their parade by explaining how they're doing it. This is the first goal. It will probably take about a dozen runs of the level 80 Forge of the Titans in order to create something like this, and you'll need to destroy a few of the shields that have the 15% defense mod, which are 100 chaos each at the moment. You might also need some Crychic Chimeral Imprint Base. In all future steps, assume that we're talking about non-unique items unless otherwise stated. Lastly, you want to hold on to your ability to split the item. You'll be able to use either a Fractured Fossil or a Phenomenal Plague Naracted exactly once in order to duplicate this shield. You want to do this quite late in the process. You don't want to do it at the start because you want to have the ability to get paid off twice for all the work you've been doing. So our first step is going to be to get a Steel Kite shield that has 40 energy shield in column 1. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can simply trade for this, or you can alternately create it yourself. If you want to create it yourself, you'll need to source one shield. Any shield at all will do that has a 40 flat energy shield mod in the first column. Other Crucible mods do not matter at all. You just need to have that one. And you'll see the two mods listed in the top right of the screen here. Plus 40 maximum energy shield with a drawback of 25% reduced ES recharge, or plus 40 maximum energy shield and a drawback of 25% reduced mana regeneration rate. You'll then need to source another shield that is a Steel Kite shield, and I'll call that base an SKS from now on. You want to prepare the 40 energy shield mod by allocating it. So all you need to do is just allocate the first node, and this will normally be the case. That's the default situation that the item will be in after it's been taken to the Crucible Forge somewhere. You then want to do something counterintuitive on the SKS. You want to take it to a Crucible Forge and run a Crucible encounter with it, but then you want to unallocate the first node. I'll put a link down in the description below as to how you do that, but basically it involves standing at another Crucible Forge and applying a Scouring Orb not to the item itself, but to the specific mod you want to unallocate. Now we have an RNG step. Both items enter the Forge. The 40 energy shield goes on top, and this is the wrong base, so let's just imagine this is a Titanium Spirit Shield, and the SKS goes on the bottom. When you do this, you'll be about 70% to keep the 40 energy shield mod, and you are 100% to keep the SKS base. On a success, what you want to do then is unallocate all nodes past the first one. So you'll end up with something like this Cobalt Steel Kite Shield that you see here, only one Crucible node allocated, and it has the 40 to maximum energy shield with one of the 2 drawbacks that's available. This one was seen on trade for 120 chaos. You could even just turn around and sell them at this point if you wanted to do so. Okay, so our step 2 is going to be to also add on the 15% defense mod. You'll see here that we have 15% increased explicit defense modifier magnitudes is a Crucible mod. You want to search for an item that has this particular mod on it, and then we're going to try to create something like this Weapon Master's Steel Kite Shield that you see here, except for the split tag. So you're going to want to have 15% increased explicit defense modifier magnitudes and 40 to maximum energy shield. And then whatever the node that is connecting these, or it may be one node, it may be 2 that connect them, this node needs to be something that you can live with. It doesn't need to be good, but it does need to be something that doesn't ruin the item. What you're going to want to do here is source a shield that has the 15% defense mod. This does not need to be an SKS. It can be any old base in the game. It can be an armor evasion shield, whatever. You want to allocate that node and any and all mods leading up to it. Anything past it doesn't matter, but you do want to allocate that 15% increased explicit defense modifier magnitudes node. Then we want to go to the level 80 forge, and this is the RNG step that you can lose a little bit on. The new item that you've prepared that has this 15% increased explicit defense modifier magnitudes on the wrong base type, this one goes on the top. Your 40 energy shield Steel Kite Shield that you prepared in step 1 goes on the bottom. Now, the odds here aren't absolutely certain, but research that's been done by PoE Noob, and I'll put a link to that down in the description of the video below, implies that the probability is between 25% and 50%. I'm not willing to say that that's absolutely certain, but it does seem to be something along those lines. So this is the step that you're going to do here in order to get these 2 mods together. Once you finish step 2, you should have something similar to this Weapon Master Steel Kite Shield, with a 40 to maximum energy shield, 15% increased explicit defense modifiers, and something else you can live with, but you don't yet have the offensive mod. At this point, it's time for Crychic Chimerals, aka Imprint Beasts. You will need to now make the item into a magic item. So you're going to need to scour it and then transmute it, and then once you've done that, you can then use Imprint Beasts on it. So this thing is going to be an RNG step that might take a few tries. Now, very important to remember that you don't split the item yet. Even though this item that you see here is split, that was a mistake in my opinion that the person who crafted it made. It would be better to save your one ability to split things until later in progression on the craft. Finally, we have the last non-awful step. Here, I'm going to suggest that you read PoE Noob's detailed Reddit post and or check out their video that discusses all of the Crucible mechanics in quite a lot of detail, as that will help you optimize. However, you can definitely just take a shot at the craft without perfectly optimizing it, and you will still do okay. So item 2 here that you see on the right has the Spectral Shield Throw / Shield Crush mod. Now that mod is always going to be in column 5. This mod is in a position where it connects back to the same location as where you've got the 15% increased magnitude of defensive modifiers. So you see that this one is on the top of column 3, and this is connected to here. That's what you want to see. Now what you want to do is put the item that has been imprinted on the bottom of the forge. That way you can always revert back to this stage. You want to allocate all of the nodes up to and including the 15% increased explicit defense modifier magnitudes node that is on this shield. And then you want to, with the second item, have only the first node allocated. It appears that the odds for this step are about 20 to 25%, although those aren't absolutely certain. So in case that you fail this craft, there are different failure states you can get into. You can have a situation where you lose one of these 2 mods. So you lose either the 15% increased explicit defense modifier magnitudes, or you lose the 40 maximum energy shield. In this case, you need to revert your imprint and then use a new Crychic Chimeral and repeat from there. On the flip side, you may find yourself in a situation where these nodes remain in place, but you fail to transfer this node across. If that's the case, what you're going to need to do is then regain the necessary Crucible XP in order to allocate this again. In that situation, you can just go for another attempt again straight away and sit on your imprint until it becomes necessary. Once you've done this, you will now have something akin to this Superior Steel Kite Shield. Now this is the point at which you be split. This is the point at which you use either your Phenomenal Plague Enacted or a Fractured Fossil in order to make sure that you have 2 of this item instead of 1, and this is the reason that we've been putting this off until such a late step in the craft. Why go through all of this effort to get paid off only once, when you can do a tiny bit more effort and get paid off twice instead? Now at this point, it is time to make yourself hate Path of Exile by scour, chance, repeat. Scour, chance, repeat. A lot of the time people will throw around a number like, oh, it's 1 in 5,000, but they don't really mean it. What they mean is 5,000, everyone acknowledges that's a big number, and just saying 1 in 5,000 is a way of conveying that this is a very big number of attempts are going to be needed. No, here I actually think it is something like 1 in 5,000. So here, if it takes you 3 seconds to apply a Scouring Orb, then to apply a Chance Orb to the same item, then it is going to take you something like 15,000 seconds, which is 4¼ hours, in order to scour chance this into an Emperor's Vigilance. And that's the long-term average. You might get lucky, you might get unlucky. This is an absolutely horrible step, and really it speaks to how bad a mechanic Chance Orbs are. Chance Orbs should be much rarer and much better, otherwise they shouldn't exist at all. But they do exist, and this is the way to make the best shields in the game. So basically, keep going. The only failure state is your own misery as you ask, why am I still doing this? And that is how these 1000 energy shield shields are being made and being even somewhat mass produced. There's quite a lot of them on the market. They're being sold for well over 100 Divine Orbs at the time I'm recording this video. They probably should be a lot cheaper than that, but they still should be in the dozens of Divine Orbs range just because of that scouring chance step at the end. That's all I've got on this. May your Val Orbs have interesting results, and I will see you around.